Route 9 was a lonely scar cutting through the heart of upstate New York. It was late December, and the night was suffocatingly dark. "Doctor." Ryan Miller gripped the steering wheel of his old Ford Explorer, his knuckles white. Outside, the wind screamed through the pine forests, driving the snow horizontally across the windshield. He had been a country doctor for 10 years, hardened by late-night calls and harsh winters, but tonight felt heavy. The silence between the gusts of wind was unnatural. Suddenly, the hum of the engine cut out. No sputter, no warning light, just instant, dead silence. The power steering locked, and the heavy SUV drifted sluggishly to the shoulder, crunching into the snowbank. "Come on, don't do this to me," Ryan hissed, twisting the key. Nothing, not even a click. The car was a tomb. He stepped out into the biting cold. The wind hit him like a physical blow, needle-sharp and relentless. He popped the hood, staring helplessly at the engine block, when a voice sliced through the howling wind. "Need a hand, Doc." Ryan spun around, his heart hammering against his ribs. Standing at the edge of the tree line was a figure tall, gaunt, wrapped in a coat that looked too thin for this weather. He hadn't heard anyone approach. "Jesus, you startled me," Ryan gasped, his breath forming thick clouds in the air. "My car, it just died. Do you live out here?" The stranger didn't step into the light. He stood perfectly still, like a statue carved from ice. "You need to come with me," the man said. His voice was flat, devoid of emotion. "Someone is sick, up at the old farmhouse." Ryan hesitated, looking back at his dead car. "I can't just leave. I need to call a tow." "No time," the stranger interrupted. "He's been waiting for you. It's life or death." A chill ran down Ryan's spine that had nothing to do with the winter, but the oath he took as a doctor outweighed his fear. Grabbing his medical bag, he followed the stranger into the woods. The trek was a nightmare. They trudged through knee-deep snow for what felt like miles, finally arriving at a dilapidated cabin hidden in a clearing. The windows were black, except for a faint, rhythmic flickering of orange light from a single room. "He's inside." The stranger pointed a bony finger toward the rotting door. "Go on, I'll fetch firewood." Ryan pushed the door open. The hinges groaned in protest. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of stale dust and old paper. On a cot in the corner, illuminated by a dying kerosene lamp, lay an old man. He looked like a skeleton draped in skin, his eyes sunken and glassy. "You came," the old man whispered, the sound like dry leaves scraping together. "Thank God. I didn't think he'd find you in this storm." Ryan pulled up a broken chair, his professional demeanor taking over. "I'm Dr. Miller. Tell me what's happening." The old man let out a weak, wheezing chuckle. "Everything is shutting down, Doc. The clock has run out. But my health isn't why you're here." With a trembling hand, he pointed to a rusty metal box on the bedside table. "My son, he's in Chicago. We haven't spoken in 20 years. Stubborn, both of us." "Sir, please rest," Ryan said, reaching for his stethoscope. "Listen to me." The old man's intensity was sudden and frightening. "That box contains my will. My cousins. They are vultures. They want this land, but I left it all to my boy. You have to witness it. You have to make sure he gets it." "Okay, I promise," Ryan said softly, trying to calm him. "But let me check your vitals first." "And Doc," the man's eyes locked onto Ryan's, filled with a desperate plea. "If I don't see the sunrise, take the cash in the drawer. It's yours." Ryan nodded. Humor the dying man. "Let's see that pulse." He reached out and wrapped his fingers around the old man's wrist. Ryan froze. The world seemed to stop. The wrist wasn't just cold, it was stone cold, solid, unyielding. Ryan's medical training screamed the impossible truth in his mind. Rigor mortis. This stiffness doesn't happen instantly, it takes hours. This man hadn't just died, he had been dead since the afternoon. Ryan pulled his hand back as if he had touched fire. Panic, raw and primal, clawed at his throat. At that exact moment, the kerosene lamp flickered violently and died, plunging the room into absolute suffocating darkness. "Who are you talking to?" A voice whispered from the corner of the room, not from the bed, but from the empty air. Terror seized Ryan. He didn't think. He didn't look back. He grabbed his bag and bolted. He burst out of the cabin, sprinting through the snow, slipping and stumbling, his lungs burning with every gasp. He didn't look for the stranger in the woods. He just ran. He threw himself into the driver's seat of his Explorer, locking the doors with trembling hands. He twisted the key, bracing for silence. The engine roared to life instantly. The heater blasted warm air. The dashboard lights glowed steady and reassuring, as if the car had never been broken. The next morning, Ryan returned with the sheriff. They found the cabin exactly as it was. They found the old man's body on the cot, frozen in death. And on the table, covered in a thick layer of dust, sat the metal box containing the will for a son in Chicago. The coroner's report was definitive. Time of death was approximately 4 p.m. the previous day, 6 hours before Ryan's car had broken down. Ryan never found the stranger who led him there, but he made sure the box got to Chicago. The storm wasn't just rain, it was a warning. It battered against the stained glass windows of St. Catherine's Convent, a decaying structure isolated from New Orleans by miles of murky swamp water. It was late March when Mother Superior Constance introduced the girl. "This is Sister Evelyn," Constance announced, her voice as cold as the stone floor. "She has come to wash away her worldly sins. She is one of us now." Evelyn, a pale woman barely in her 20s, stood silent. Her eyes were hollow, sunken deep into a face that hadn't seen sleep in weeks. She didn't bow. She didn't speak. She simply drifted to her quarters like a ghost. Later that evening, Sister Sarah leaned over to her roommate. "Does she not make your skin crawl? It's like looking into an open grave." By midnight, the convent was dead silent, except for the thunder rolling over the bayou. Sarah, tossing in her bed, heard a sound that shouldn't exist. It was coming from Evelyn's room. A guttural, wet whispering. It sounded like two voices fighting for one throat. A deep, demonic, raspy growl, and the high-pitched weep of a terrified child. Curiosity overpowering her fear, Sarah crept across the hall. She pressed her eye to the keyhole. Her breath hitched. Evelyn was sitting in her chair, but her body was wrong. Her limbs were contorted at impossible angles, like a broken doll. Slowly, with a sickening crack, Evelyn's head twisted entirely backward to face the door. Her eyes were gone, rolled back into a canvas of pure white. Sarah screamed. The chaos that followed was instant. Mother Constance and the nuns rushed in, finding Evelyn growling, perched on the furniture like a feral beast. When Constance raised her crucifix, Evelyn didn't cower, she lunged. With supernatural speed, she bit into the Mother Superior's arm, tearing flesh before 3 nuns managed to pin her down. Fear gripped the convent like a plague. They locked Evelyn away, but the prayers of the local priest, Father Thomas, were useless. The thing inside Evelyn only laughed at him, spitting bile and whispering sins that no one else knew. They had no choice. They called for Father Blackwood, the diocese's most feared exorcist. 3 nights later, the ritual began. The air in the room was freezing, thick with the smell of sulfur and rot. Evelyn was strapped to the chair, surrounded by a circle of holy candles. "I command you." Father Blackwood's voice boomed over the wind outside. "Tell me your name, demon." Evelyn's head snapped up. A smile, too wide for a human face, stretched across her lips. "Ask him," the entity hissed, its eyes locking onto Father Thomas, who stood trembling in the shadows. "Ask the Holy Father about the baby." The room went deathly quiet. Mother Constance's face drained of color. The demon's voice shifted. It wasn't a growl anymore. It was the crying of a newborn. Buried, in the mud, behind the chapel, alive. The horror of the truth hit the room heavier than the storm. A year ago, Evelyn wasn't a nun. She was Eva, a choir singer. And Father Thomas wasn't just her priest. He was her lover. When Eva fell pregnant, it threatened to destroy the church's reputation. Mother Constance, desperate to protect their image, had orchestrated the unthinkable. She forced a premature delivery. And on a stormy night just like this one, they took the crying infant into the swamp and silenced it forever in the mud. Eva had broken, and in the cracks of her shattered soul, something dark had crawled in. "Lies," Father Thomas screamed, but the terror in his eyes confessed everything. The candles flared up, turning a deep, unnatural black. Suddenly, gravity seemed to fail. An invisible hand grabbed Father Thomas and Mother Constance by the throats, lifting them off the floor. They clawed at the air, gagging, their feet dangling helplessly. The black flames leaped from the candles, ignoring the wood and stone, latching directly onto the priest and the Mother Superior. They screamed for mercy, suspended in midair, as the supernatural fire consumed them. Within seconds, there was nothing left but ash and silence. Evelyn slumped forward, the entity gone. The aftermath. Evelyn survived. She remembers nothing of the possession, nor the fire that accidentally claimed the lives of the church leaders. Street. Catherine's was condemned and abandoned shortly after. But the locals say the bayou never forgets. If you pass the ruins at night, listen closely. Beneath the sound of the crickets, you can still hear the crying of a baby and the desperate screams of a priest burning in eternal flames. The rainy night. Ben wasn't your typical cab driver in Seattle. While other drivers spent their breaks scrolling through social media, Ben was always found with his nose buried in a vintage paperback. He loved old mystery novels. The smell of yellowing paper was his favorite scent. He was a good kid, always helping his neighbors in the suburbs, but he was broke. His dad was retired, his sister needed tuition money, and his own beat-up sedan was barely holding together. One stormy Tuesday. The rain was coming down in sheets. It was a miserable night for driving, but Ben needed the cash. Just as he was about to call it quits, a notification pinged on his phone. A pickup request from a desolate corner of the industrial district. He pulled up to see a figure standing in the pouring rain. The man was old, dressed in an outdated, soaked trench coat and a fedora, clutching a leather briefcase. He looked like he had stepped out of a black and white movie. Heading to the old bridge, the man rasped, sliding into the back seat. His voice sounded like dry leaves scraping on pavement. During the ride, the old man noticed the book on Ben's passenger seat, Raymond Chandler, The Big Sleep. The man whispered, "A man of culture, I see. People don't read anymore." Ben smiled. "Yeah, I guess I'm old school." When they arrived at the destination, a dark, empty stretch near the river, the man handed Ben a crisp, damp $50 bill. "Keep the change, kid." Ben turned to thank him, but the back seat was empty. The door hadn't opened. The man was just gone. The strange journal. Confused and spooked, Ben drove home. That's when he noticed it. On the back seat, where the man had sat, lay a small black leather journal. It wasn't wet, despite the passenger being soaked. Ben took it inside. His room was a mess. His gaming PC had a fried motherboard, and his TV was on the fritz. He tossed the journal on his desk and collapsed into bed. The next morning, strange things started happening. His PC, which had been dead for weeks, booted up instantly, running faster than ever. When he went downstairs, his mom was ecstatic. "Ben, did you order this?" A brand new 65-inch 4K TV had been delivered, paid for in cash. Ben was baffled. He went back to his room and opened the journal. The handwriting was elegant, dated 1925. The name inside read, Jonathan Sterling. As he read, chills ran down his spine. The entry for that very day read, "I sleep peacefully now, knowing young Benjamin has taken up my burden. The books must be saved." Ben dropped the book. How did a diary from 1925 know his name? The Manor in the Woods. Over the next few days, a sweet scent of pipe tobacco filled Ben's room, though no one smoked. The journal seemed to guide him. It spoke of a hidden library and a debt that needed to be paid. One night, the urge became unbearable. Ben got into his car, which started automatically before he even turned the key. The GPS set itself to a location he didn't know, an abandoned estate deep in the woods of Washington State. He arrived at a crumbling Victorian manor. The front door creaked open as if welcoming him. Inside, amidst the dust and cobwebs, Ben found a room untouched by time. It was a magnificent library, filled with thousands of rare, first-edition books worth millions. In the corner of the room, sitting in a high-backed armchair, was a skeleton. It was wearing the same tattered trench coat as his passenger. Suddenly, the air grew cold. A ghostly whisper filled the room. They wanted to burn them. "My precious collection. You must save them, Benjamin." Terrified, but driven by a strange sense of duty, Ben called the police and the Historical Society. The twist. Ben woke up in the hospital 2 days later. The police chief told him he was a hero. That estate belonged to Jonathan Sterling, a famous collector who vanished in the 20 seconds. "You found a national treasure, kid. The reward money alone will set you up for life." Ben was relieved. He had saved the books, fixed his family's financial problems, and solve this century-old mystery.